Hello, I'm Anita White. I'm a life coach with WhiteLighter coaching class here in Stillwater, Minnesota. Welcome to my show, Coaching Conversations. The purpose of the show is just to have a very simple, easy conversation that helps people be enlightened about how our divine purpose is catapulted into the next dimension by setting intentions every day. So today I'm visiting with Jeffry Jeannetta-Wark. And Jeffry is going to just have a light conversation with me. So welcome, Jeffry.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Tell me a little bit about who you are and, you know, what your life is like.
Okay. I have lived in Stillwater for 3 years. I have 2 amazing male children. One's 12, one's 9. And I'm a psychotherapist in private practice. So I'm a social worker who does psychotherapy. And this will be my 24th year doing that.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
wonderful.
It's great.
So tell me, what did you want to talk about today?
Well, I'm really passionate about helping people raise their level of consciousness. And I feel like that's divine purpose for me. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about that.
Okay. So let's break that down a little bit. A lot of folks don't understand what that means to raise their consciousness.
Right.
What is their consciousness?
Lovely. Well, what we are aware of and what we give to the world and what we take in from the world is related to our consciousness. So being awake and seeing things as they truly are, as opposed to creating stories about how we think they are, that's kind of related. Mm-hmm. And I like to be aware of where spirit teaches me, guides me, and where other people are guided by spirit. And you have to be awake, thus conscious, to hear the call and to take the steps. So I like to help people be more aware of where the universe is excuse me, knocking on their door and guiding them. And that takes consciousness.
Can you give me an example? You know, a client that would let you tell the story, or someone else in your personal life? Can you give me an example about someone being asleep and then awake?
Yes. Many years ago, when I was 11, my mother died, and I never really resolved the grief of that. And when I was about 26, I went to the place, religious, it was a synagogue actually, in this huge room, and I was sitting there by myself, and it was on the anniversary of her death, which was February 14th. And so I'm sitting there just crying, trying to resolve and come to peace with the loss that was not resolved. So I'm just bawling my eyes out and asking, what am I supposed to do with this? This pain is horrific. What do you want me to learn from this? So without even knowing that I was asking Spirit to guide me in that moment, I heard this voice that was as loud as I'm speaking right now. And it said, you're supposed to work with children whose parents died.
Oh.
And I turned around to see who was telling me that, but there was nobody there.
Wow.
And so I went home in a daze. I was like, that was a miracle. So I checked the answering machine, and on the voice machine was a message from my friend Joy Christensen, who said, do you remember I told you about facilitator training to work with kids whose parents died at the Minnesota Center for Grief and Loss? Well, they have one facilitator spot left. I think you should do it. Why don't you call them? Here's the number. And I was like, that's insane. So
you get immediate evidence.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So I called, and doing that work helped me resolve the grief, which just opened me to more consciousness and helped me be the social worker and working with grief issues that I just love. So.
Oh my goodness. You know, I had a similar situation.
You did?
Yes. I was looking for an internship in college.
Okay.
And I majored in family systems. And the internship was with a program that helped kids that were at risk of chemical dependency.
Wow.
So it was a chemical abuse prevention group for children that were 9 to 12 or 7 to 12.
Nice.
So being able to facilitate that did exactly the same thing. It facilitated a learning and a growing and a healing in me that I had lost during those years of my life as well.
And
So it did. And then there was a component that was missing, and it was a parent's education that supported what we were teaching the children. So I piloted a program that taught the parents the same skills and abilities so they could reinforce them with the kids, because in the dysfunctional system they're invalidating from that shame base.
That's right.
They're invalidating what the kids are learning when they're coming home. So when we got both of those things running, we saw exponentially more growth and healing with the children as well as the parents.
Yes.
So it's a dramatic thing to be able to find something outside like that
Yes.
that makes you awake and aware.
Yes.
And then brings it inside so you can actually grow that little kid in you that was wounded.
Yes.
Or the adult, introduce your adult to that child
That's right.
and have that healing go on too.
That adult allows you to leverage your core essence and your gifts in a way that's more purposeful and powerful into the world. So without that adult, it's harder to do that.
So tell me about the adult. Is it the parent in you? Is it an example of someone else?
That's a
or-
good question.
Yeah.
I would say I call it the adult mature self. And that's the part of us that comes in with genetics, that we are, the capacity, it's infused with us, and it has compassion, it has wisdom, it has the ability to make executive decisions, and it's always present, and it helps us be our best self. And it's got enough detachment in the ego so that it has a big picture view of what needs to happen in the micro, but it can be macro, but it can be micro in terms of decisions and executive details.
So the conversation between the adult child and the inner child.
Yes.
Tell me how that would go. Give me an example of how that would, maybe you have an experience where you can share about, what that was like in the beginning for you when you realized that you had this wounded child
Yes.
and that you had this adult that could help them heal.
Right. Well, you referenced adult child. My distinction is there's a mature adult self and there is a child self. We don't want to take away from the child self that's playful and spontaneous and creative. That's an ingrained piece that I always want to keep. The inner children aspects. So, for example, if I was 11 and my mother died, and I was severely wounded, then I have an unhealed, really pained 11-year-old child inside. And if my adult comes and says, let me help you with that, my mature adult says, let me nurture you, help you, guide you, and there's good relationship between the two, then I have a really healthy 11-year-old with an adult part. And I'm a whole person at that point. Without that unification, I have split off parts. That's where you run into problem, because unconsciously I will act out the 11-year-old developmental stages and the issues that are not healed. So when I help people with their consciousness, it's to be aware of their parts, to bring the mature self and help the whole person unification process.
So they can be playful and be an adult.
Exactly. Mature and responsible, playful and creative, great combination.
So some of the techniques that you can send someone home with,
Yes.
one of the things that I've done is have people write in the adult voice
Yes.
and then respond
Yes.
in the child voice.
Lovely.
And the conversation is started with the child. This is what I need from you, my
Nice.
adult self.
Nice.
Or the 9-year-old, I'm 9, I
Yeah.
want you to help me with this. Or I'm 11, this is what happened to me, and explain it.
Lovely.
So then there's that conversation that they can have on their own, but yet have the ability, and usually I have them do that right before they come to see me, so they're not walking around wounded after a session.
Yes.
It's like they're ready and prepared then for
Yes.
what is revealed in that, and then they come in and are able to display what it is that they need to learn,
I
or
like
grow, or
that.
heal.
Yes.
They have been enlightened to what that is.
I like it. Let me take it a step farther.
Yes.
To have the person be aware of the mature adult self and be really clear with what the aspects of that person, that part are, as well as the child. So we'll get real clear with what that child is all about and who that is. And then there's a chair right there. And I'll say, you are the adult here. Ask the child a question. And then the person asks that chair, seeing that child there, the question, gets up, sits down, becomes the child, and then responds. And then asks, and there's dialogue. And so it's back and forth and back and forth. So that there's compassion, understanding, insight, and a unified agreement to move forward in a conscious way. Again, conscious.
Conscious.
Yeah. So it's fun.
Whew. Let's take a breath.
Yeah. It's good. It's called impasse work, but
Yeah.
it sounds like we do very similar.
Yeah. Well, there was
work.
a time where I had a doll that looked like me. It wasn't too hard to find. Just find a
Yes.
brown-haired doll, and I had her sitting in my bedroom, and we'd have conversations before I went to bed at night.
Yes.
When I got up in the morning, anytime during the day, and it was very engaging. It wasn't that I was just talking to the doll. The doll was giving me feedback too at the same time. So I felt like I am with my children, nurturing. And I don't have girls. I have only sons.
Yes.
So it's a different energy that happens with that feminine. And I was able to heal a lot of that. And I think people don't know that it's so engaging. Part of their spirit, part of their soul, part
Sure.
of their emotions.
Yes.
They know how they think, that those words change how they are.
There's also another piece to it. When I help people be aware of their inner children and have dialogue with the inner children, those inner children grow up.
Yeah.
And they become at the same level, chronologically, mature-wise, emotionally, as the host, the person. Then they can merge and become whole, and you bring them in, and you have a sacred relationship with them, as opposed to, again, a split-off part who acts out,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah. I know a lot about that, acting out thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do
It's a
too.
past life, right?
Right, sure, that's where I got it from.
Right. Right.
I don't act out anymore.
So I have one more question for you.
Yes.
I know the purpose of the show is about how we set intentions and how we live a divine life. And can you tell me what it is that you see when I say those words, when I say living with intention, or what is your divine purpose?
Yes.
Tell me.
My understanding of those things, or how they apply to me?
First that, and
Yes.
then how they understand it applies to you.
Intention for me is about literally to put myself with conscious awareness into whatever I'm doing. A thoughtfulness, a mindfulness, a conscious application of self with the world. Yes. And then what was the other piece?
Your divine.
Divine purpose, yeah. Well, if it's to help people grow their consciousness, when I teach, when I do psychotherapy, when I'm engaging other people, I feel like I'm called, it's my calling,
Yes.
to do what I can, and what Spirit says, you know, this would be good to talk with them about, if I'm guided, to check and engage related to consciousness. And it may be as simple as pointing out something that's very beautiful and seeing if that person recognizes it. And it might be something within themselves. Even taking a look at a shadow, you know, someone's shadow, parts of their unconscious they're not aware of, that don't help them. Just to acknowledge it may be something that helps them go, ah, I see that now. That's helping their consciousness. So
if you gave a job description to the shadow, what would the job description be?
yeah, it would be to help you see your light.
That's a goal, or that's the outcome.
Absolutely.
What kind of characteristics are inside of the shadow?
Oh, that's a great question. Good thing we have 3 hours to talk about it. Well, there's a hidden quality, thus they're in shadow. There's often some level of pain and an unresolved capability or a gift that's not fully expressed.
So do you think that the shadow kind of plays itself out in the wounded child?
Absolutely. As in, I mean, different parts of us will act out the shadow material that is not brought to consciousness. So I want people to acknowledge what's in their unconscious, pull it forward and see it consciously and say, oh, Now I can make choice. And my whole life is going to change because of that. Without that awareness, it'll just keep playing itself out. You don't even know it's there.
I always tell people that it's 80% of it is being aware of it. It's a 20% of taking action and how to heal that, release it, or transform that.
I think that's...
So tell me some of your ideas about that.
About that idea?
Yeah.
I think the percentages are slightly different.
All right.
There's a Chinese proverb I really like. It's not what happens that's important, it's what we do with it.
Right.
Therefore, acknowledging it is different than what we do with it. If I acknowledge it, for me, that's 20%.
Okay.
The rest is how I express myself, what I do with it, responsibility that I take, how do I grow self and other in the world, what do I do with what I just became aware of.
Right. Right. There's a period of time in my life where I realized that I was acting out from that negativity.
Yes.
The old tapes are running and I was opening files, and the more that I dug in, the more pain I was in and the more rough edges I had. And I got very in tuned with what that shadow was trying to tell me, but I had a real hard time with bringing it out to consciousness and then knowing what to do about the problem.
Yes.
Because I didn't have the same kind of resources like we do now.
Yes.
There were different kind of resources. I was 12, 13 years old when I could see that what was happening to me, I was behaving badly.
Yes.
And so what I did is I had to find a higher source. And I think we should talk about that a little bit, because you and I as practitioners, we can help people heal and grow and invite that in, but maybe have an option or an opportunity for someone to be able to go to that higher source so they can be guided to the right person.
Yes. Some people are open to that language, some people are not. I tend to say the universe, or spirit, or with people who are a little more open to the language, creator, you know?
Right.
Because we have certain buzzwords which are dogma related and upbringing and religiously loaded.
Right.
But there's an underlying philosophical perspective, I think, that says we're not alone. We don't make all the decisions, and for the sake of humility, we're slightly lower than the angels, and that's a good thing. And we don't have all the power. Therefore, if you believe it comes from somewhere, it's nice to tap into it. Call it the Tao.
Yeah.
Call it the way.
Yeah.
Call it what you want.
But how do you call it?
How do I call it?
Yeah, how do you call it?
Oh.
You're giving somebody advice on how to call in their higher source, or their God, or Jesus, or angels. How do they do that?
Yeah.
What kind of language? I mean, it's kind of like that intentional, you know, help me lift this out of me.
Yes.
You know, I mean, a lot of my prayers are just, will you help me out here?
I get that.
You know, kind
That's
of
good.
thing. But if there's some language that can be very specific, especially about the topic we're talking about, you know, wounded children or the shadow.
Yes. If you have examples of where the universe has spoken to you, then I want to hear them in answer to your question. If you're aware in yourself, of your tummy, or of other people where spirit has met the person and said, here's some information, then you're aware, again, conscious. We can take that awareness and say, no, let's apply it to you. And if they say, it's never happened, okay, now start being aware. And next time it happens, write it down, come tell me about it, celebrate it, journal, write about it, ask your dreams to show you something about it. And then listening at a deeper level. Unhooking left hemisphere logic and ego-based rationality, more intuition, more soulful listening, more meditation. That will allow you to hear the things that you haven't heard. And so the better you get at listening and getting yourself out of the way, the better you can make room for spirit. Call it what you want.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I tell people that meditation is like getting the download from the internet.
Yes.
And that image, it's a lot easier to, you know, let that in and then, you know, kind of respond, or to sit in nature and just be really quiet and look at it metaphorically.
Yes.
So.
And metaphor is a beautiful way to do it. Anything that has to do with symbol, metaphor, anything that has to do with dreams, poetry, they all speak to that more soulful, spirit-laden aspect of self.
See, and my advice when I'm relaying information to people about how they might get more in touch with that is for them to log the coincidences in their life. And the things that are kind of like mind-blowing. How did that happen? Like that?
Yes.
And I play on the word coincide dance. That means it's coming from here and it's going inside to dance with my spirit.
Very nice.
And it's to take it internally, whatever is external, to take it internally and to figure out how that is playing out in there. And a lot of people, through art or music, I mean, they're able to kind of present what's inside of them out in the world.
Right.
But really, if we're doing the same thing with God or Jesus or Allah or Buddha, whoever people are going to, I mean, and I called in angels. Yesterday I was on a mission and I called in angels and I felt them. It's that stopping and tuning in and saying, okay, I asked for this, is it coming?
Right.
Do I feel it? Do I sense it?
Yes.
And to have that knowing, and I think that's for me the intention or the divine purpose, it's that knowing the synchronicity is exactly how it's supposed to be, and that serendipity is, by chance, but it isn't a coincidence.
Right.
That nothing is really a coincidence, it's purposeful.
Right.
And that us living out our divine purpose is purposeful.
Absolutely.
And by doing it with intention and knowing what our calling is and setting that intention to follow that every day.
Yes.
That's how we reach that just gut, I'm doing really well here and I'm living out what I'm supposed to be.
How can one manifest without intention?
That's a very good question. So what do you think about that?
I think that if we want to purposefully manifest anything, we need to be intentional. And to be intentional, we have to be authentic. And to be authentic, we have to get into the place where Spirit can speak to us. Because Spirit's waiting for us to actually get in alignment with Spirit in order to bring about the manifestation that we want. And if not, it'll just wait, because it can, and that's what it does.
Yeah. I say that if you don't deal with it intentionally, it will deal
with
with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap up the show for today.
Okay.
And are there any last comments that you want to add along the way that might have got missed, or any last words that you want to leave the audience with today?
That's nice. I did bring a quote
All right.
that might fit here.
Okay.
If I can read it.
You can read it.
Thank you.
It's your time.
Oh, thanks. Every dark and foreboding place is one more path I have come to know, into which I willingly enter and will emerge. Excuse me. I'll emerge from with abundant and vital expressions of authentic living. So it kind of speaks to walking into the darkness with trust. And if I'm connected to Spirit, I have my trust.
Yeah. It's not something you're looking for. And it's not outside of you. That's inside of you. Well, thank you, Jeffrey.
You're welcome.
That's been very engaging. And I've learned a lot from you today.
Thank you. It's been really fun.
Thank you. Thank you for watching the show today. I'm Anita White. I'm a life coach in Stillwater, Minnesota with WhiteLighter Coaching Quest. And I just want to leave you with these last words. No matter what you think you are so much more than that.